I have been working for about 24 hours, if not longer. Couldn't sleep yesterday, so I got up and I started working on the show for today on Fault Lines. And I realized that, wait a minute, you're doing the entire show, so there are gaps in the show that you need to fill, which meant I was basically writing the entirety of the show. And so when I finished that, that went extremely well. So I wanted to cut some of the videos. That took all day. like, like this has been a very, very long day, but productive day. And so if it's productive, I think it's a win. What's not, or who is not winning at this moment is one Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been diagnosed with COVID-19, tested positive. Apparently, he was having a mild fever, and Donald Trump has now been hospitalized in Walter Reed Medical Center. The President of the United States, an elderly man, portly, not in the best of health, has been diagnosed with a disease that has been known to basically eat through elderly people who are not in the best of health. So I would imagine that he is spooked. He's probably freaked out. And he decides, I'm the President of the United States. Save my life. Save my miserable, miserable life. Take a look at this. This is, in fact, I'm just going to show you what happened in basically 2 days. Everything from, let's just show it. It's quick. It's take maybe 10 minutes. But it's a fascinating transition from something that was somebody else's illness to maybe the president to the president. And then to president going to the hospital to make sure they save his miserable life. Welcome to the soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. We can call it Soapbox After Dark. If you guys dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. Again, I want to send a shout out to my audience, my patrons, my subscribers, for staying with me. Like I said, I was ill over the course of the last month or so. This month has been utterly and entirely insane, to put it mildly, for me. And it's left somewhat a traumatic thing to deal with. And so it took a bit to get my bearings back, in which case I'm trying to basically get the show back up to where it was before. So I just want to thank you all for staying with me. I've been trying to kind of drop explanations throughout the course of the show because I didn't want you guys to think, well, we were pretty clear on what was taking place. So thank you. It starts here. A shot in the dark. Weya Yang, where are you from? CBS News. CBS News has learned Hope Hicks tested negative for COVID-19 Wednesday morning, so she boarded Air Force One. She developed symptoms during the day and received a second test, which came back positive. The White House knew about the Wednesday evening, but Trump still had a fundraiser on Thursday. Note, while the White House knew Hope Hicks had symptoms on Wednesday, that prompted a second test. It's unclear exactly what time the results came back, but certainly before the president's fundraiser in New Jersey. Casual disregard for other people. And I'm going to show something else that, tell me if I'm wrong. This is Hope Hicks. This is Donald Trump's, one of his closest assistants. Hope Hicks. This is Hope Hicks. This is another shot of her. Okay, that's a small one. I need a larger shot. Apparently, they are extremely close. And in being extremely close, they work in tandem often. Now, when she got sick, because they're close, Donald Trump was exposed. Answer me honestly. Does she look like a young version of Melania Trump? I could be wrong. But if Melania Trump was, let's say, 20 years younger, their features are very similar. I put it this way. I wouldn't put it past Donald Trump to hire people who... Two things. This is nothing about her skill. This is everything about him and what I think of his, what he would do. That's all. And to me, she looks like a younger version of his wife. But nevertheless, we start off with that. Hope Hicks is sick. She has COVID-19. Hope Hicks, who has been working so hard without even taking a small break. This is Donald Trump. This is him bringing in and explaining what's taking place. Tested positive for COVID-19. Terrible. The First Lady and I are waiting for our test results. In the meantime, we have begun the quarantine process. All right. He gets on Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity is the guy to go to. Safe space, Sean Hannity.
A lot, but she tested positive. And I just went out with a test. I'll see what, because we spent a lot of time, and the First Lady just went out with a test also. So whether we quarantine or whether we have it, I don't know. It's very hard when you're with soldiers, when you're with airmen, when you're with the Marines, and the police officers. I'm with them so much. And when they come over to you, it's very hard to say, stay back, stay back. It's a tough kind of a situation. It's a terrible thing. So I just went for a test, and we'll see what happens. I mean, who knows? But Hope very well. She's fantastic, and she's done a great job. But it's very, very hard when you are with people from the military or for law enforcement, and they come over to you, and they want to hug you, and they want to kiss you because we really have done a good job for them. And you get close, and things happen. I was surprised to hear with Hope, but she's a very warm person with them, and she knows there's a risk, but she's young, and I just went out for a test. They just do it. It'll come back later, I guess. And the First Lady also, because we spend a lot of time with Hope and others. So we'll see what happens. But
where are we with therapeutics and with the vaccine in your view?
You have to treat our people great. You can't just say, stay away, stay away. They come up to you. There's such love with what we've done for them, and there's such love, and you have to treat our people great. So we'll have to see. I mean, I'll get my test back either tonight or tomorrow morning. But I spent a lot of time with Hope, and so does the First Lady.
So basically, giving her accolades. We like Hope. Hope is awesome. We spend a lot of time with her. We're going to get our tests. And before the night had finished, it became clear that Trump was infected with the virus. He puts out, of course, a tweet alerting the people that basically the president and the vice and the woman, his First Lady, is infected with COVID-19. Now, I would be lying if I said I did not take a certain satisfaction from that. 207,000 people, 207,000 people dead, no longer on this planet. It is a direct result of the policies that Donald Trump was putting in place, the downplaying of this virus, the inability to use the presidential edifice to organize the country and organize the supplies and ensure that the people in the country were on pace with masks created from the U.S. government if necessary, handed out by the U.S. Postal Service. That was their idea, if necessary. I'm making the point that your job is to protect this nation. And the fact that you had that many people die. India has 1.3 billion people and has less deaths. China, where the disease originated from apparently, same, 1.3 billion. Less deaths, nowhere near close. It's astonishing the number and the level to which we failed at this, and to which the people in this country, 7 million people infected. And this doesn't get to the economic carnage that the president cared more about looting the treasury, first cronies and whatnot, as opposed to using that money to give to each person, $5,000 to each person. Screw it. Your job is to give a stimulus in order to get the economy up and running, but they didn't understand that. So their thought is, let's give it to the people at the top who don't need it. And they put it in their pockets and said, thank you. And the rest suffered. Desperate. Food banks. 70-year-old women waiting in lines for hours just to get bread, hoping they could get some level of meat in this particular occasion. California had a situation where 50% of the population was out of a job or something in Los Angeles? I mean, I'm trying to get across to you the scale and the level of depravity that has taken place in our society. What a rational government would do versus what this government did. And I'm saying they don't align. So if I take a certain self-satisfaction in a man who flagrantly downplayed the virus when he knew, absolutely knew as a flat fact, all the way back in February, the lethality of the virus, the level of contagion to which the virus represents, and still downplayed. Emphasized the economy. He emphasized pushing people back into their jobs, not giving them the money they needed to go from point A to point B. And just because you give people money from a standpoint of a pay package, it doesn't affect the people who had already lost their jobs. And I'm sorry, many of the people who worked were working in positions that didn't necessarily allow them to receive that or receive it late. Even the $1,200. I don't know who they think lives off of $1,200. I'm just making a point that the inadequacy of the response, and even when it was understood that what they were doing from the standpoint of the pay packet was helping, even if it was inadequate, the PPP loans, they stop it. Unemployment, stimulus, stop it. Those people, again, the jobs increases from the unemployment line. A government that doesn't care. 30 million people out of a job, and the government doesn't care. Tens of millions of evictions, and the government doesn't care. It's utterly astonishing. You have 7 million people in this country with COVID-19. You have 20-something, maybe 30 million people without health care? When Obamacare was signed, after Obamacare was signed, over 20 million people without health care, and you have another 15 more because of this. The number of jobs that are lost, and because our health care is connected to our jobs, those people lose their health care. I'm just saying this is a horrible situation for a country to be in. And a president that was at the helm of that walked around flagrantly, that didn't want to wear his mask, that was at the shop where the people had to, I don't want to wear a mask. That's his brand. That's my brand. And if he would have had goddamn sense to recognize that the mask would have been the way to get the country through this faster. But instead, we have our current situation. Yes, God exists. I have a certain self-satisfaction from this.
Forget it.
Take a look at this. This happens today.
I want to thank everybody for the tremendous support. I'm going to Walter Reed Hospital. I think I'm doing very well, but we're going to make sure that things work out. The First Lady is doing very well. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. I will never forget it. Thank you.
Let's get that herd immunity going. Herd immunity, herd immunity. I hope this hurts. I hope it hurts. Call me a horrible person. I hope this hurts. I hope this hurts. I hope when he lays down, he has a difficult time breathing. His body aches. Something in him that was weakened, inflames. I want it to dig into him. Because Republicans have a certain tendency where they don't give a shit about anybody else until it happens to them. And maybe if this bites into him, this madness, this notion of herd immunity, let's just get people back into their jobs. Maybe if it takes a chunk out of his ass, that he will understand the level to which people have to deal with this particular illness in the physical sense. He would never get it in an economic sense. But at the very least, maybe, if his life is on the line, if he feels it, if it digs into him, maybe he comes out this a little bit more, even if a nano value, compassionate. Maybe he gives a shit a little bit more. Maybe the devices of the government get used in better ways because he cares about X or Y. Personally, I don't think that's what's going to happen at all. Trump has a fever. That's it. And yes, it can progress over a period of time, and we have no idea to which point he was infected by the virus. So basically, we're in a situation where he's probably going to get checked out because he's somewhat freaked out. Again, older man, portly. Mortality rate is not that high or is not that great. However, he is the president of the United States, and all the medical powers at the disposal of this country will be used to keep Trump alive. This is Trump taking a walk of shame. Keep in mind, you must understand, Trump did not want to get sick. Initially, and I'm going to talk about it in two ways. He would have people clean the rooms and make sure that he wouldn't get ill and all this stuff. Well, that's why this looks bad. Because the president is basically saying, look, we're turning a corner, we're getting jobs back, we're doing this, we're doing that, everything is great, and bam! We're doing so great that the president of the United States gets hit with COVID-19. Now, so did Boris Johnson, but Boris Johnson came out of that a better man. He looked like hell. And if you remember, the UK was talking about herd immunity nonsense. Let the weak die off. Let the weak die off. And if the US could have gotten away with a policy like that, what do you think sending people back to their jobs? What do you think giving, having these companies like Amazon being able to hide the number of employees that are ill and whatnot? Let the weak die off. And I'm saying that is an utterly disgusting policy that these guys were allowing. So yes, I don't care if Trump is sick. In fact, I revel in it. And if I'm being honest, like I said, I want it to hurt. I want it to ache. And I want it to be something that takes a bite and a chunk out of his ass in such a degree that he comes out of the hospital and says, we need to do more for the American public. This can't be right. I'm cynical that that's going to happen. I have my hopes.
We're about to get also the actual video. Here's the video of the president walking out. Let's watch.
Can you tell us about how you're doing right now? How long has it
By the way, notice the fashionable mask. Fashionable mask. That's called reality. Bending a man to form. Bending a man to form. With an extra kicker of a virus. Let's watch. They're languishing on it. The president of the United States. The bearer of the disc of freedom, the indispensable nation, and the commander-in-chief of that nation, walking to go to a medical center because he caught a virus that he continuously told us was not a big deal, was something like the flu, would eventually go away, would be in churches in Easter or whatever. And instead of dealing with the real material economic needs and concerns of your population, you gave rhetoric. You couldn't get the sides to come together for a resolution. And the paltry items, executive orders, We don't even know if those things are necessarily going to be constitutional to the degree that those things can be implemented, especially since states are suffering. It's not that they were bad politics, they were exceptional politics. I'm talking about, though, the real needs of your population. If indeed you're the president, whether you got this job because you wanted it or not, you do have this job. And to some degree, those 207,000 deaths on your conscience, those 7 million people who have medical issues that go beyond that point. And again, you get 20, 30 million people without health care. And the people who don't have health care will most likely to be people on the lower end of the economic spectrum, which would just so happen to be disproportionately the people who are working at those jobs where they had to continue to work at those jobs or collecting some level of unemployment. Trump goes to the medical center. Now, CNN has been up on this because, after all, it is the commander-in-chief, the indispensable nation, the greatest democracy on the planet. We saw that debate. And so they've been following this pretty closely. Now, I want to go to a New York Times article first, though, because this article hits at this notion of these guys being infected. There was no one closer to Mr. Trump than Mrs. Hicks, who returned to the White House this year after leaving her position in communications director in 2018, and on Wednesday traveled to the president on Air Force One in Minnesota. She began feeling sick around the time of the campaign rally he held there, according to one person familiar with the events, and was quarantined on a return flight to Washington with a disembarkment from the back entrance of the plane. Her positive diagnosis came on Thursday, according to a person familiar with the case, but the White House made no announcement about the situation, and Kelly McNamee, the White House press secretary, who had also been on the plane and exposed Mrs. Hicks, held a briefing with reporters without mentioning or wearing a mask. How bizarre that we allow issues of science to become issues of politics. I understand why the financial industry, the people of means, the people who have these companies, these single-minded money grubbers, who basically just want more and believe that we have infinite resources, apparently, where they can make more infinitely by using the resources of the planet. They basically would say, right. They would basically say, if they were being honest, look, we want to be able to exploit the land. We want to be able to get the gas. We want to be able to get this and that, and we want to be able to not deal with those costs. We would like to externalize those costs. Now, we can't say that, but what we can do is put $1 billion into Joe Biden's campaign. We can put a bunch of money into the candidates coming up and down the race, especially the ones that agree with us and the ones that don't. We try to crush them. We can offer outpourings, meaning of favors and gifts. Maybe when that kid gets of a certain age, that kid maybe get a job at our company. Maybe when that kid gets it, hey, maybe they get a scholarship. I'm making the point that soft, hard gifts, oftentimes, especially in the standpoint of money, when 90% of the races are won by the side with the most cash, carry sway. Your political spaces move far to the right because of that. Obama has said himself, I would be a Republican back in the 90s. Yes, you would. And that's just how far we've come, where that guy was considered to be the hope and change candidate. It's basically Ronald Reagan. My point to you is the moment that you have people paying politicians in that way, then politicians can be incentivized to make arguments to be for or against something that is against the interests of the people who are paying them. Meaning, if tobacco needs, to be able to sell their products and they need people to leave them alone, well, they come up with an argument that says, hey, doctors are on board for the smoking stuff. And hey, maybe you get a politician that you get paid that helps you to not necessarily bring up legislation for year after year after year after year. Or if you want to think of the same thing, climate change legislation, where you get oil and gas And it is a flat fact that most scientists, overwhelming majority, like 90-something%, agree that this is an issue. Now, from my standpoint, if I am wrong, I get a better environment. If you are wrong, it all goes to pot. I'm willing to go with my chance on this one. Oil and gas, however, will look at this and say, no, that hurts our profits. And because it hurts our profits, the end of the world is preferable. And we will make arguments as if we are part of the solution, and we will continue to pay these politicians to back our interests. Hence, it becomes political. So instead of having a conversation about environmental change and how do we do something about it, etc., it becomes, it's not real. It doesn't exist. It's a hoax. And you have another part of the party that says, no, it is real, but doesn't do anything materially real about it. One denies the existence of God, and the other one accepts it, but doesn't really accept it in real terms. Just say it. Look, I guess my point is this. They're making the case that says, look, these guys weren't even having a mask around us, and they were ill. They were infected. CNN comes up, and last one, it says, Trump will be spending the next few days at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, according to the White House and Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany. Shaken by the illness, Trump was spooked after he tested positive for COVID-19 and become increasingly alarmed by the diagnosis as he developed symptoms like fever overnight, according to a person familiar with his reaction. Yes. Suffer, Trump. Big guy, you can take it. Alpha male. Tough guy. Fever and fatigue. Trump has said a fever since this morning. A person familiar with that matter. The person said the fever remains consistent with the White House earlier description of mild symptoms. This in addition to new information released by the White House doctor, which described Trump as fatigued. In the president's own words, I want to thank everybody for the tremendous support, Trump said in a video posted on his official Twitter account for the first time since getting diagnosed. I think I am doing very well, but we're going to make sure that things work out. Okay. Receiving treatment, Trump was administered a dose of Regeneron's antibiotic cocktail for the COVID-19, according to a memorandum from the president's physician. Flurry of tests. Joe Biden announced that he's received 2 COVID tests this morning, according to remarks that he made at the Grand Rapids. Now, keep in mind, these guys just had a debate, and if Trump was infected, they don't exactly know when Trump was infected. They assumed that Trump was infected by Hope Hicks. And at that point, it's like, well, when was Hope Hicks infected if these guys were around each other? In which case, Joe Biden may say there are 2-week horizon between the time of infection. For that matter, they may have been infected and just weren't showing symptoms until now. So Trump may be a super spreader, depending upon when he got infected and the people that he was around without a mask and without any level of social distancing. Super spreader president. He is a super spreader of misinformation. That information came out saying Trump was the greatest spreader of misinformation about COVID-19, if I am not mistaken, in this country, and if I'm not mistaken, the world. And so it wouldn't shock me if he also turned around to being a super spreader of this. I mean, if a person said they didn't believe in sexually transmitted diseases, is that person is more or less likely to have a sexually transmitted disease? More, right? Because the things that you would do in order to protect yourself aren't part of it. And so you say, yeah, I just don't believe in it. I just don't believe in it. And yet, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to say something base. But you know my point. You get my point. Get my point. Pretend it doesn't exist all you want. Reality is something entirely different. And last, well wishes pour in. Former President Barack Obama and Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro were among growing number of people to wish Trump well. Quote, "This is not a matter of politics. It's a bracing reminder to all of us that we have to take this virus seriously. It's not going away automatically," Biden said in Michigan today. Now, yeah, Bolsonaro wished Trump a speedy recovery. These two people are homeboys. Bolsonaro himself is a utter and entire failure, a fascist who basically was part of the old regime, but more importantly, has allowed Brazil to basically try to catch up with the United States. He has failed across the board and was doing the same tactics as Trump of not wearing a mask, not, social distancing, putting out proclamations on this other nonsense in the country that went against the scientists and went against basically what we know at this point was the best potential low-cost solution to dealing with it in regards to our interactions as individuals. So yeah, he was failing miserably also. Modi, another right-wing government, failing miserably also, and is catching up with the United States. One of the other interesting things associated with this is Joe Biden has decided to stop hitting Trump with attack ads. So understand what I mean. He's said, okay, I'm not going to hit him. I'm not going to hit him. Now, this is interesting to me because why? Is it just he's a bleeding heart, or is it a calculus of saying, look, if any chance happens that Donald Trump continues to get sicker, he is a portly 70-something-year-old man. Chances aren't typically great, but the chances aren't typically great for people who are in nursing homes. This is the president of the United States that gets to have hamburgers from McDonald's pretty much 4 or 5 times a day. Gourmet made perfectly, I would imagine. But I'm making the point that relatively healthy. And it doesn't seem to be adversely hitting him too bad. But again, this virus, the way that people talk about it, it can be brutal of a ride. Chris Cuomo saw his dead dad coming back to him. So the president of the United States may get his hooks in him before it's all over with. Now, he's probably not going to come out and tell us that. He's probably not going to come out and say he wept. He called for his wife to hold him or whatever. But whether he tells us that or not, at the end of the day, the president is ill. And the president is freaked out. And because he's freaked out, he understands, at the very least, he said in enough of those meetings, and for the 2% of the time he was probably paying attention, they've gotten enough in him to realize that this is not good. I don't want to have this virus. 207,000 people died. 7 million people are infected. 300,000 people are going to die by Christmas. This is not a great thing for me to have this virus, especially at my age and at my physical capacity. Biden knows this also. If Biden is hitting a man who's ill, the president of the United States, while he's sick, their thought is, look, you got to be above politics on this. This is something that politicians, especially those old-style politicians, know. There's some things that you do in the way that you regard the other opponent, regardless of what that opponent is, that has to be above and transcend that opponent, regardless of if that opponent is even named Donald Trump. So when Trump gets sick, he's the president of the United States. This is a thing that our nation is facing at this point. If anything happens to the president, there's going to be a line of succession. If anything happens to the vice president, there's going to be another line of succession going to Nancy Pelosi. And maybe, not even Pelosi, what happens if the president of the United States dies during the election? I'm not trying to put a jinx on. I'm making the point that this gets really sticky in regards to the politics. Because ultimately, Trump is going to have to stay on the ballot. Biden will stay on the ballot and run against him. If Trump won that, what the hell? Like, how do you make that work? You think the Republican Party is going to let them choose somebody else who may be a Democrat? Like, this gets pretty sticky. But this is, far-fetched at this point. Donald Trump is ill. He's not feeling all that well. He's scared because of the name of the virus. And he may feel a bit miserable with a fever and everything else. And so he's there to ensure that they keep him safe and secure and alive. If things turn bad, however, that's when things get really dicey and really weird and interesting from the standpoint of a Mike Pence. And what does it mean to have a Mike Pence to run? And what does it mean to have Mike Pence to take power for a period of time while Donald Trump remains in some kind of, healing situation? It's weird. It's strange. Even though I may say, yeah, Trump earns this, and I hope he gets his hooks in him, that's more so because I want him to come out of this a better person than I think he is currently. And better, I mean more empathetic in regards to the people he's supposed to philosophically be representing right now. Not just philosophically, legally. That's where that's coming from. But on a second note, it is weird to have the President of the United States going in for a virus that you actively know has taken down 207,000 people. The last point, conspiracy theory. My wife put this out here. Maybe he's not sick at all. Now, the reason she said that is because, and my thought is, what if Donald Trump is thinking to himself, I am going to lose this election and I'm going to lose it monstrously. And he does not want to be embarrassed. He's also set up a precedent where when the November election is held, a percentage of the population is not going to believe that he lost. He keeps attacking the voting and the electoral system over and over and over. He attacks it. And as he attacks it, it sets up, what am I looking for? A certain energy about it. Meaning there's an elevation, there's an escalation in regards to the way that he goes after it and the way that the people who listen to him appropriate that language. Not just appropriate that language. Think about it in the same way that Democrats would think about Russiagate. Whether it's true or not is less important than the fact that they give you an argument to run with. But this argument that they're running with is an undermining of the electoral system itself, an undermining of any particular candidate that wins. Because if my guy doesn't win, that process wasn't fair. And understand what that means from the standpoint of all of these people out here who's been stoked by the shit Trump says. When the media brings up Proud Boys and brings it on CNN, that group, whatever you say about the group, is out there toasting beers. Obscure group that Donald Trump, for whatever reason, mentions and the group flames up. Donald Trump does not have to denounce white supremacy. Yes, he's a racist. I understood that from way back then. Asking him whether he should denounce this or that is almost irrelevant to the point. Whether he would denounce it or not, it's his base. No, he's not going to denounce it. Will he come back and denounce it later? Yes, because at that point, he's already done the deed on the debate stage by not doing what you wanted him to do. The check on Twitter doesn't matter. They already understand where his head is. But what if you don't want that to happen? Donald Trump is rich. Does he really want a toppling, a revolution? What happens on day 2 of the revolution? How does he come out in that revolution? Is he still going to be in power in that revolution? I mean, do you really want that situation to unfold when you, Donald Trump, are rich as rich can be, and all of this is just an issue of pride for you? It doesn't dig deep. Whether you win or lose doesn't matter in material sense. It matters in the sense of your ego. Losing would sting. And it would be just like the other losses and failures throughout the course of your life that you had to deal with. In this particular situation, it will be on a mass scale with all of the population, millions, telling you to kick rocks. You failed miserably, and we're going to put in this elderly man that we don't even think is going to make it for a few years through the presidency in order to get you out of office. Now, you have a contingency of people, about 30%, that said, we don't care. We're backing you. And you back them in the rhetoric that you give, even though you fuck them over just like you fuck everybody else over in the country from the standpoint of the material concerns. They don't care about that. They have their special interests. And their special interests, whatever you're talking about. Even televangelists, Christians, and whatnot. If you're going to ban abortion, I don't care if you say grab him by the pussy. I care more about you stopping people from having choice over their bodies. That's what I care about. That's their single issue. That's what I'm It's that stuff. In this case, specific instance, Donald Trump. Let's see, where are we? There we are. Yeah. So you have those people backing Trump. But what if he believes he is going to lose? Meaning, regardless of what he says, he had that debate and he realized, damn, my strategy to get Biden to repudiate the left worked. He did it and nobody cared. Nothing changed. I don't want to go through this election and lose, nor do I want to go through this election regardless of the bravado, regardless of the brinksmanship that I'm employing in this election to try to push it and to try to win this stuff. Regardless of it, I don't want to go over the edge, because going over the edge undermines what I want also in regards to somewhat of a society that I can basically be rich. What if this is the way of tanking it? Oh, I'm ill. I'm ill. I'm ill. I want to see the viral birth records. That's what I want to see. I want to make sure that Donald Trump is indeed positive, because otherwise I have no way to know. I'm just taking his word for it, and Donald Trump is a flagrant liar. It is possible that he is terrified of one Joe Biden in real terms, especially if you're looking at the polls and you're seeing the Hillary Clinton stuff in the comparisons, you're seeing Joe Biden ahead of it, and you see Biden's lead basically stable, solid, unchanged. Now, don't misunderstand me. I have a sneaking suspicion that the polling is closer than what it's saying it is. And basically, when it comes to people getting out of their beds, taking energy to go and pull the lever, Trump's people are fired up. Now, the catch becomes whether those people, 70-something% that's backing Joe Biden, not because of policy, but entirely because they're terrified of Donald Trump, entirely inverting the whole notion of democracy or notion of representative government in and of itself. It's not the job of the candidate to get your vote. It's your job to throw yourself at the candidate. We went through a primary. What they got to do with me? I'm not a Democrat. My job is to get policy accomplished. What's yours? You just like to get the party in. Okay, fair enough. We have different objectives. Look, from the standpoint of this election, with Trump getting ill, it's unclear what happens from here. If Trump doesn't get too ill, and that's assuming that Trump is ill at all, and say for the moment that Trump does want to tank it, that he does believe he may lose, is this a way out? Depends on how sick he gets, right? I got to be honest, I don't entirely believe that. My bias goes to this notion that Hope Hicks was sick, and Trump, like I said, a man that says syphilis doesn't exist, goes around acting like a man that says syphilis doesn't exist, with no mask, no protection, and is engaging. She gets sick. He gets sick. Melania gets sick. And at this point, Trump may be a super spreader depending upon the number of people that he talked to. So this is basically what we know up to this point. People have been wishing Trump well. Trump campaign email fundraisers attendees and notifies them that president's COVID-19 diagnosis. So the markets tanked, apparently, or freaked out. North Korea's Kim Jong-un hopes Trump will recover as soon as possible. Everyone needs to be tested who is near Trump, infectious disease experts say. So basically, yes. I mean, it's common sense at this point. White House coronavirus task force is in the dark on the president's health, sources say, meaning task force that's supposed to deal with COVID-19 does not know the status of the president of the United States. It's just rational government, man. There's like such a distinction between those things. And to see it And people kind of just blow it off. And my thing is, well, don't blow that off. Is that something systemic? Or is that something where people just messed up? And the reality is, it's a race to the bottom. It is systemic in many respects. We can get well soon. Oh, right. I saw that one. All right, guys. It's getting late. I'm going to end this. I'm going to say like, share, and subscribe. Thanks all.